let's get started. So we can just introduce ourselves so you guys know who you're going to be working with this afternoon. My name's Emily. I'm the head of student athlete success over here at Sports Recruits. I run our customer success specialist team. So team of individuals, whenever you're emailing in to help or giving or calling us, making sure that they're able to give you your answer. And then I also work with our recruiting analyst team, which is a team of individuals that works with families one-on-one going through the recruiting process, and then also our sales team as well. A little bit about my recruiting process. I was strictly looking Division III, where I ended up playing basketball at a small liberal arts school called Franklin and Marshall College. During my time there, I worked in the athletic department. I worked with various different teams, and I was also the assistant to the associate athletic director. Really excited again to have Skye here with us. We love soccer parenting and all that they're doing for parents, guardians, and really giving them advice on how to navigate through the recruiting process. Recruiting process is definitely a family process. So again, really excited to have Skye here to talk about events and how parents should be navigating that. So Skye, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we can go through some of your slides.
Sounds great. Thanks, Emily. I'm excited to be here with Sports Recruits and have a chance to connect with some parents that are going through this really exciting journey of sort of the college recruiting process. It is, navigated with a lot of stress and excitement and a lot of emotion. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. As Emily mentioned, I am the founder of Soccer Parenting and also soon to launch SportsParenting.com. I was a collegiate athlete myself. I was a All-American in college, played Division I soccer, also played Division I basketball, and was recruited to run track of all things, and then ended up really more in the soccer space. So my college recruiting experiences are things that, despite it being so different way back when I went to college, is something that's still really relevant. My daughter, Callie, who I'll tell you some stories about, was a collegiate athlete herself, and I'm a former college coach. So we'll be sharing some different experiences from my perspective as a coach in college, as a parent, as a collegiate athlete myself. So I guess with that in mind, Emily, I'll go ahead and start sharing my slides. Sound good? Do you want to go? Okay, why don't we go through the agenda and then?
Yeah, quickly go through the agenda. So Skye's going to go through effective sport parenting, specifically during events, how you can be supporting your student athlete to be successful this summer season. Then I'm going to jump into just talking about the different types of events. What are the different types? What's worth it? We're going to talk about the different types of invites as well, how to identify what's a personal versus non-personal invite. I'm going to talk about how to create an event strategy. So what events should you be choosing? When should you be going to them? And then how to make it worth it.
Good. Love it.
So cool. Yeah. Skye,
parents, if you want to pop in the chat and just let me know, like maybe the age of your child and the sport that they play, just so that we have sort of an idea of where we are. And then certainly as I go through my slides here, and as Emily goes through hers after, we're certainly super open to questions from you in terms of things that might come up as we're going through all of this. So what I'm hoping to accomplish just in these next 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so is to really talk about the role of the parent in the recruiting process with your children, specifically related to the summer event series that's kicking off. So many recruiting events that happen in the summertime. And then I really want to hone in on 3 key perspectives for sports parents related to the recruiting process. And then while Emily will get into like the specifics of the logistics of preparing for events, I will be talking about preparing for events from preparation from like what we need to be considering truly as a parent and supporting our child. So diving in maybe a little bit behind the scenes there. And then sort of day of support during an event, like considerations for ways we can show up as a parent during this stressful time, potentially for our children. And then what our role is when it comes to communicating with college coaches. So again, encourage you to pop into the chat with any information about your situation so that I can consider that as I'm going through these slides as well. I kind of wanted to start with the premise of soccer parenting. And I think in some ways I can tell a story around this moment and saying this on a radio show. And when I said this, um, I had a lot of social media responses to it. I had parents that reached out with curiosity. I had coaches that reached out because the coach parent relationship is one that's often so confusing. And at Sports Parenting, we are trying to solve the stress or the lack of clarity, lack of boundaries, the nuance of that confusing relationship between coach and parent. Really, to do that, we have to acknowledge the role of the parent. And when I was on the Sirius FC show with Glenn Crooks, I said, until we have some sincere and honest conversation about the way we've treated our children and how we've impacted them, good and bad, will really be missing an important part of the solution. And the key word here is solution. I really do believe that parents and parent engagement and us being more involved in the sporting experience of our children will lead to kids that are more inspired and are able to fulfill their dreams and high performance dreams of playing in college and beyond. The role of the parent is really essential here. Simply put, we matter. Parents matter to the sporting experience. And, that is so key during the recruiting process. I will say that I feel like us parents get a bad rap. The majority of us are like how I was coming up in the game as a parent. I was level-headed. I wasn't like crazy living vicariously through my child. I wasn't, it's a stressful situation though. So sometimes absolutely I was stressed. And so this is the way we like to frame the work we're doing with sports parents. We acknowledge that you're level-headed and sometimes stressed. And we absolutely believe that some education can mediate that stress. Some education is what can actually relieve that stress so that our children don't feel it. And so that our children feel this beautiful sense of inspiration. Here's some pictures of my daughter, Callie. I wanted to, as I'm getting into the college recruiting information, just share this story about her because it's so relevant to this conversation. So that's Callie in the upper left in the orange. She's probably around 11 at that age. Really had a great passion for soccer. But the structure and the stress of performance, tryouts, and coaches watching her, and I'm sure my background as a player in the game put some stress on her. And fast forward to the picture on the bottom left where yes, I did snap a picture of my daughter sitting down and crying in a moment where I was trying to help her do some like summer fitness stuff. And I snapped the picture with a story, Callie, one day you won't feel this overwhelmed. And I'm going to take a picture right now. Is that okay? So that we can look back on this moment and realize how far you've come. So with her permission, I snapped that photo. I did send it to my sports psychologist friend with a please help and big disclaimer as after I snapped it. And thankfully I got a lot of help and I actually founded Soccer Parenting in this moment and did a lot of building education for parents. Now we're building out into sports parenting. And the long story is that Callie kind of found her way into the game and a way to play with joy and to play with enthusiasm and to not feel as much pressure. I will say that that did not happen until after the recruiting process. Like the college recruiting experience for my daughter was horrific. She did not want to pick up a phone and call a coach. She would have panic attacks and so much stress over the whole concept of it. She ended up playing in college, Division III at Emerson. She was an All-American in college herself. And now in the bottom corner, you can see she's working at the Columbus Crew as their director of youth programming and still involved in the game. But the journey that our children have in sport is such an up and down one. And the college recruiting experience for her was so emotionally challenging. And so that's why I'm especially excited to have this conversation with you all today regarding the recruiting process. So the role of the parent in the college recruiting process, especially as we're thinking about events coming up for kids, I think it's really important that we start with the whole college thing is really confusing. I remember, in fact, Emily, preparing for this, I went back to an old article I wrote on soccer parenting, like 10 years ago. Oh, maybe not, maybe, yeah, probably like 8 years ago. And I was saying, I mentioned sports recruits way back at
Oh, wow.
that email before that blog article before I even knew any of you all really, because sports recruits was something that really helped me have it be less confusing.
Mhm.
But this is confusing for our kids too. Like I remembered Callie, like, I don't know where I want to go to college. I don't know, like, if I want to go Division 3, Division 1.
Mhm.
Everyone thinks I should go Division 1, so I guess that's what I should do. Or I don't know if I want a big school or a small school or a city school or a school that's more rural. So it's hard. It's a lot. I think we need to start with just like the understanding, kind of underneath everything that we're doing. That's just a confusing thing. Obviously, as it goes saying with everything that we do as a sports parent, let your child lead the way. This was not easy for me. I told a story on the last webinar we did that, Callie in her junior year, just before her junior year, like the key time for recruiting, when most of her team had already committed to Division 1 schools, Callie opted to go to Maine and be a counselor at a summer camp and missed the whole summer recruiting event series that was really important for her. And I had to let her just go for it. That's what she wanted. And that was
Mhm.
her also like making a statement about what's most important to me now is my friendships and this camp experience. And I needed to honor that. So we really need to let our children lead the way. Um, our role is to guide, reinforce, and encourage our children and really to just support them. That's our job. So we need to guide them because they don't know what the difference is between different size schools and stuff. So we need to
Mhm.
provide them with the resources. And then we need to reinforce and encourage them. Like reinforce, like you can do this, you've got this. I know that you can have that conversation. It just being there to support them through what can be a super stressful time. I mean, it's hard for children to speak to adults who they feel like have so much power. And so supporting our children in the next point here in their learning and development, what a great opportunity the college recruiting process is for our children to learn some amazing life lessons around having like cold calling people and having these conversations, putting yourself out there. So really our role is to support the learning and development and to see and acknowledge that. And then we need to listen and be level-headed, especially when it gets really stressful. We'll talk about that around events. And we really obviously just need to pour love into our children. They need to know that we care about them more than their athletic journey. We're here to just love them. And I know that, of course, those of you that are listening be like, yeah, I'm a parent. That's what I do. But I also, we need to acknowledge that when all these stressors come in, when we feel uncomfortable, if we're not used to these situations and these conversations and feels like there's a lot on the line, then sometimes we're not showing up the way that we normally would. So, the final point here, kind of related to that, is that we need to engage with coaches very thoughtfully as the parent. I do think there's a space for us to engage, especially when they engage with us and asking questions, but we need to be really thoughtful. I'll get into some specifics on that. Um,
Um,
yeah,
Skye, sorry, just
sure.
someone wrote in asking if you were sharing slides. So I just want to make sure that people are able to see these slides. Could you guys write into the Q&A if other people aren't able to see them? I think if that is happening, you should click Skye Eddy's screen at the top and you should be able to see the slides. But okay, other people, there's one person that's saying they can't, but another person's saying they can.
Want
So
me
maybe
to
just
stop share and share
yeah,
again? See if
maybe
that helps?
stop and share again.
Okay.
Looks like it may just be one person here. Other people are
Okay.
saying all good. So we should be good.
Okay.
I just wanted to
Sounds
make
good.
sure.
No, I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
Um, So, also, I just kind of, as we're building into that, like the three key things from the list that I just shared are guide, reinforce, and encourage, support. Realize there's a lot of learning and development, and then listen, be level-headed, and just love. Like our kids need confidence in these moments. They need to know we're on their side. They need to know we got their back. They need to know that we believe in them, even if it might be stressful. And for me, I think, I was feeling some stress in some moments, and there's one thing I know about my daughter, and I talk a lot about her on sports parenting. She's totally fine with me telling stories about her. It's given me full permission. Like she feels my stress very deeply. So if I'm not like level-headed and I'm feeling stressed, then that really plays out for her. I know a lot of parents relate to that. So considerations for college coach conversations. In preparing your children for these conversations, because they need to be leading the way, you need to make sure that your child is able to talk about their strengths and weaknesses. So often kids aren't comfortable with that, but like you guys need to practice that. I say down here in point number 3, you need to role play that. Like, so what do you think were some of your best parts of being a player? And then the coach might ask them at some point, well, what are some things you're working on? Your child needs to know what they're going to say in those situations. Even if you have to like create notes and keep talking points handy. I remember during my college recruiting process, I was so organized compared to my daughter. Like I had a notebook with dividers on it between all the colleges that I was talking to, and I had talking points and questions I would ask. So like some kids will relate to that, parents might relate to that, and you can help them create something like that. Um,
Yeah.
and
I
oh, go ahead,
I
Emily.
was just about to say, before the role I'm in now, I was a recruiting analyst and I worked with families one on one, and I would do exactly this. We would role play. I would pretend I was a college coach. I would tell the students I'm working with, you can have a cheat sheet, right? Having your GPA, having the classes you're taking, strengths and weaknesses was a big thing that we talked about and to be prepared for. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
great that you have
And then
these. Yeah.
and then just have like a question. I do this with all the interviewing I do for soccer parenting and sports parenting. And Tom Ferry actually gave me this hint is I have like my go-to 2 questions. Like if there's ever a pause, if I ever like these generic questions. So like your kids should have those types of questions too. And maybe they shouldn't be about the school and the this, and maybe they should be about, so what are you doing for vacation this summer? Like even
Mhm.
starting a random conversation to build connection might be like that go-to question that they can have on the side. And as parents, we need to understand like the coaches know that your child is nervous and they're prepared for that. I remember talking to my friend Paula Wilkins, who was a teammate of mine at the University of Massachusetts. She's now the coach at Wisconsin. And I was visiting with her and she was doing some recruiting calls. And you could see that she knew the child was nervous and she was trying to bring them out in conversation. So just realize that your child doesn't have to be perfect and on spot. Like they need to also be themselves, and it's okay to be nervous. Um,
Yeah.
and then, really, really listen in terms of your child trying to really hear what's being said. I think that's a skill that kids can learn through this. So, really responding to the question that's being asked, listening to the information so that they can maybe relay some details back to you. Asking thoughtful questions. We talked about having that question list handy. And I know this goes without saying, that your child needs to call, not you. But I know there are parents on this call that have been so tempted. And I'm embarrassingly going to say there were a couple times that I made these initial calls for Callie for 2 reasons. One, because I already knew the coach. They were like a friend of mine, right? Like they were literally somebody that I have their cell number in my phone and I grew up working with them. So I would make that first call. And also I did that because Kelly was so nervous and it felt like she was not going to be able to make the call. And I wish that I had pushed her harder and just said, okay, you're going to do it or not. Like,
Mhm.
if you want to go to Georgetown, you have to talk to Dave. Like, just really kind of push her more. So your child really, really needs to call. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just the hard, fast kind of conversation there. And then getting into events, because I know our time is limited here. Preparing for events. We'll get into this, but plan ahead so your child can do the work. prepare for that event weeks ahead of time instead of 3 days ahead when they're taking an exam and you're trying to rush and they're too busy, and then you end up sending those emails. Make sure your child is doing that. Um, um, so there should be some personal reach outs to a short list and come up with a plan, do the role playing around that. Make sure your child's prepared for conversations. We talked about this. Check in on logistics for the event to minimize stress. If you're going to an ID camp, make sure you know the directions. Make sure you know exactly what time. Make sure you get there early. And then importantly, as parents, we need to check in with ourselves. And that kind of goes into this day of support as well. We need to limit our stress. We need to understand that as parents, we are uniquely positioned to help with the mental side of the game. And then we need to be considerations for hydrations, nutrition, other preparations that might be necessary for our child. Make sure they have a phone charger, their phone is really well charged so that there's as least stress for them and they're properly hydrated and have the nutrition they need to perform. And we need to honor their request for how we show up. So Callie did go, to use Georgetown as an example, to an ID camp at Georgetown. She did not want me to stay. I ended up going and visiting a friend. I dropped her off, walked her through the line, make sure the form was signed, and then I just came back and picked her up 7 hours later, and that's what she wanted. And so I certainly honored that. Remember to listen, be level-headed, to lead with love. And importantly, sports is supposed to be fun. Like there's supposed to be joy around all of this. We'll get into the role in communicating with coaches, but importantly, don't try to sell your child's playing ability. Do not have that conversation. Let that conversation be with the coach. It's important that you talk about what you know, not what you don't know. You know your child, you know their mental side, or you know their character, you know how they show up for their teammates, those types of things. But really, I would limit the soccer conversation. Even for me as a coach, I learned quickly to have those conversations be coming from her other coaches. Obviously, your child should be talking, not you. Make sure there's a plan and observe the conversations that your child might be having during an event with a coach, with the idea that not on the car ride home, but before the next event, you can then give them some feedback. Like, remember how when that coach was talking, you got sidetracked and were fiddling with your bag the whole time? Maybe were you kind of nervous? Is that why you're doing that? Oh, okay. Well, hey, listen, next time, just put your bag down and make sure you're making good eye contact with the coach. Might be like some feedback that you could give your child if you're observing a conversation. And then be prepared for the coach to ask you some questions too, or for them to look to you and say, hey, do you have any questions, mom or dad? Don't force it. And don't try to sell your child in that moment. But if you had a legitimate question, that would be the time to raise it. Awesome. Well, I think that's it for my side of this. I'll stop sharing. Here's my contact information. We're just launching sportsparenting.com. You can register for our list there. We are certainly here to help.
Yeah, and I'll definitely share over some links in the follow-up email for everyone who attended and any registrants with soccer parenting and just some of the resources that you guys have around events. Cool. I think another thing too, just to add is when at events, we always tell parents as well, like college coaches are everywhere. They're always watching. So like, how are you presenting yourself on the sideline as well? Are you yelling at the refs? Are you getting really angry? Coaches see that and they're always watching. So something else to be aware of your sideline etiquette, we like to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe I didn't add that in, but I mean, there are times where I'm recruiting when I was coaching in college, it'd be like, whose parents are those?
Yeah.
That person off the list. No, we wouldn't necessarily, but it really does matter. It certainly does.
Totally. Great. So I'm going to go through the rest of the agenda, specifically with the student athlete. So first, I just want to talk about the different types of events that your student athlete may come across. So keep in mind, these names can be interchangeable, but we like to put them into 4 buckets. So we have a prospect day, camper clinic, showcase, or tournament. So just to break down each one of these, a prospect day is usually held by one school. It could last anywhere from 1 to 2 days, and the price is really dependent usually on the popularity of the program or maybe just how well they had done that past season. Um, this type of event is really heavy evaluation. So your student athlete will be working directly with that coaching staff. They're going to be able to learn their coaching style. They're going to maybe even be interact with the current players that are on that program. So it's a lot of evaluation coaches watching, but there is that hint of education because your student athlete's going to be going through drills, scrimmages. They're going to be learning from that coaching staff as well. Next event here, we have a camper clinic. This could last anywhere from 1 to 3 days. The price, again, dependent on the types of universities that are going to be there or are hosting it, and maybe even how long it is, if they're going to have to board, if there's going to be food, it could be a little bit more expensive. This is a lot more education. Usually student athletes who are earlier in their recruiting process are going to these camps and clinics, maybe to, learn about the different types of programs that are out there, and while trying to enhance their skills as well. So high education, always that touch of evaluation though, because college coaches will be on the sideline and will be coaching your student athlete. Showcases, we have 1 day here, but sometimes showcases could be 2 days. Usually 1 day though. Price is definitely dependent on how popular that showcase is and how many coaches. There could be 100 coaches at a specific showcase if it's a really big and well-known event. High evaluation, 90%. We have a touch of education there. Sometimes showcases, college coaches may coach your team if there's a certain scrimmage. I know when we used to run events back in the day, sports recruits, the D3 showcase was really big. We would have D3 college coaches coach these athletes. So that's that touch of education there. But this is high evaluation. Showcases are definitely a really good event to attend if you're looking to get a lot of bang for your buck. There's going to be several coaches on the sideline. So if you're looking to get exposure from a lot of college coaches on your target list, this event makes sense. You're probably going to be going to showcases throughout your entire recruiting process, but a lot in the beginning when you're trying to get a lot of exposure from the different schools on your list. And then we have tournaments. So these could last 1 to 3 days, and usually the price is lumped into your club dues. This is all evaluation. College coaches are going to be sitting on the sideline and watching you, and you are going to be coached by your club or high school coach. Some high schools go to tournaments as well. So just to break it down a little more, prospect days, as I said before, that's a lot of one-on-one time with the coaching staff, and you're really going to be able to get a full campus experience. Sometimes at prospect days, you could get a tour of the campus as well. These types of events are really perfect for schools that are high on your target list. There is no way that you can attend every prospect day of every school on your target list. It's a lot of time, and frankly, that's a lot of money. So, when choosing which prospect day to attend on your target list, it should be ones that are high, and it should be ones that you've had conversations with college coaches, right? Do they know who that you are? Have you been communicating with them? Again, showcases are where you can get exposure from many different types of programs. It's a really efficient way to get seen early on in your recruiting process. And we definitely recommend researching the showcases to make sure they have a good reputation. And some showcases, they do have a list of college coaches that are going to be attending that specific event, or they have past attendees that have attended that event. So definitely check that out to make sure it aligns with your target list. It doesn't make sense as a whole to attend events if colleges that you're interested in aren't going. So definitely make sure to research this as best as you can. And then again, clinics, this is really a lot of younger student athletes are going to these. It's great for early recruiting, development, and it is a place for you to, build early relationships with college coaches. Hey, when you are able to have more in-depth conversations. I went to this camp back when I was a freshman, when I was a sophomore. I'm really interested in your program. I've been following you very closely. So it is a great way to build relationships early on. Okay, so we talked about the different types of events. Now let's talk about when your student athlete is getting invited. And I know, Skye, you were a college coach. So I'd love if you have any tidbits on some of these as well on how to identify. So we have the personal invite. How do you spot this? It's usually something informal, whether it be a text or an email, and it's short and sweet. Hey, Skye, I wanted to reach out and let you know we're having a prospect day. We'd love to have you there to learn more about you as a student athlete. And maybe it even mentions something that's unique to you. So you get this invite. Sorry, Skye, did you want to
I
jump in
was
on
going to
that?
say, and it would be
Yeah.
something like, "We saw you play at X tournament on this day," or "I talked to your club coach about you, and I
Yeah.
think it'd be a great fit." There'll be something like that probably in it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's worth mentioning. We saw you somewhere. We know how you play. So what does this mean? You're on the coach's list, and this coach has sent that to you directly. So when you receive this, how should you respond? If you're interested, obvious, but worth saying, you should reply to that coach, letting them know if you are available to go or if you aren't available to go. If you're not interested, you should still reply to this coach. The coaching world is very small. The same way that you want transparency from a college coach, that college coach deserves transparency as well. So let's say, you're about 90% sure you may not be interested in this program. Emailing the coach back, hey, coach, I'm not going to be able to make it. Like, I'll keep you posted on where I'll be this summer. If you are 110% sure that this program is not for you, hey, coach, thanks for reaching out. Like, at this time, I don't think Franklin and Marshall is the best place for me to be. I wish you the best of luck in your recruiting process, right? But make sure you are that 110% sure. And I don't know, Skye, if you have
Yeah, that
anything to
happened
add to that.
a lot to
Yeah.
Callie. It's like at the beginning of the process, there was really a lot of the Division 3 thing. At first, she
Yeah.
was like, "I'm only going D1 or bust," and then she realized that she really wanted more of a Division 3 experience, and so
Mhm.
she had to kind of open the door back up to some of
Yeah.
those people that had been interested in her previously. So I would say that, as I said in my slides, this is a confusing process. Like
Mhm.
it's hard for kids to figure it out and understand. So absolutely keep the doors open.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be 110% sure before you
Yeah.
say no.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. So non-personal invites, we have all gotten these. These are much more formal. It's general phrasing. There's not much personalization. Dear Emily, dear Skye. And what does this mean when you get this? It doesn't mean you're not on this coach's list. It doesn't mean that you are. You're likely receiving this because you're somewhere in the database. How student athletes get into the database of these college programs is through filling out the questionnaires. So this is most likely an automatic email sent by their database of who've received questionnaires, and it's not sent directly by the college coach. If you're interested, as always, reach out to that college coach and respond to that email. If you're not interested, there is really no need to reply. Only if you're interested, you should be replying to these emails. Great. So we talked about the different types of events. You're getting an invite, what's personal, what's not personal. Now let's talk about creating your event strategy. So, what is worth attending? So, with an event that has one school attending, here are some of the questions that you should be asking yourself. Um, I meant to change this. The first bullet point that actually should be up there, have you introduced yourself to this coach yet?
Mm.
Have you communicated at all? It doesn't make sense to attend an event with one school or many schools attending if you haven't communicated with any of the coaches being there. That should be that first bullet point. Second one here, is this school on your favorites list? And they high up on your favorites list. And with that, can you play at this level and does it fit your academic interests and your social interests? So to give you an example, I played basketball in college. I am 5'5". I'm very short. Would it have been amazing to go to a women's basketball camp at Duke? Of course, but I need to be realistic with myself. Is it really worth the time and the money of my, parents sending me to that camp? So I think if, you know, it's okay to attend events that are a reach for you academically or athletically, but that shouldn't be all the events that you're attending. And it's important to be honest with yourself. And if you're having a hard time distinguishing if you can play at a certain level, reach out to your athletic advocates, so your club coach or your high school coach. Maybe you have a trainer you work with. This is my list of schools. I'm really interested in going to these camps. Am I way out of touch, or do these make sense for me? Because it can be hard. And even as a parent, you always think, your kid is the best one out there. So it could be hard to be, honest with them on where they are athletically. And then finally, do you want to learn more about that school, whether it be coaching style, how the team is? Because attending these events, you are going to be able to learn that. So if you can answer, 4 out of 5 of these, yes, then it is probably worth going to that. Again, you shouldn't be attending every prospect day or every camp or clinic on your list. That's a lot of time and that's a lot of money. Now, events with several schools attending, is there at least 1 or 2 near the top of your favorites list? Again, these showcases, these tournaments is a really great way for you to get some bang for your buck and get exposure from a lot of programs at one time. Have you been in contact with these coaches? Have you introduced yourself? Have you let them know that you're attending the event? And I'm going to go into communication before, during, and after events, but it is so, so important. And then again, do these schools match the level of your play? And what's the reputation of this event? So we have a little timeline we put together here. I know we're at that green area, but you can still, research events that could be a good fit for the summer. Definitely start to gather your video from whether it was your spring season, your winter season, or fall season, wherever your sport lies within the calendar year, and get that ready for the summer event season. College coaches need to see video. And it's really important because you're going to be messaging college coaches a lot this summer. So having up-to-date video on your profile will be great for them to evaluate you. So as you start to get into the summer with where we are now, you're attending events, you're following up with programs, and you're going to adjust that schedule based on feedback. So, definitely be communicating this summer. It's going to be so, so important around events. I know I've said it, but I'll say it again. Doesn't make sense to attend an event if you're not communicating it to college coaches. So communicating about events, hey, I have new video. The summer is a really big recruiting time for college coaches. This is when they're on the road. This is when all of their time is dedicated to recruiting. Cool. So how do you make an event worth it? You picked out which events you're attending, what to do before, during, and after. Message college coaches before an event. We tell student athletes 7 to 10 days if they can. Some of you may say, Emily, I get the schedule 2 days before. That's totally fine. Send it then. Whenever you get the schedule, send it to the college coach. College coaches aren't attending events walking around trying to find the best player. They're attending events with a predetermined list of student athletes who have reached out. Can't stress it enough. Let college coaches know where you're going to be this summer. During the event,
I would chime in here just for a second, and just as an experience as a college coach, and say, so let's see, a week before, absolutely, that's when you should be reaching out. If this is on your child's top of their list and you haven't heard back from the coach, I would just ping them one more time just before the event, day before, just a reminder. This is, and let them know, this is one of my top schools. Your child should let them know, this is one of my top schools that I'm considering. I would really love for you to have a chance to see me play again.
Yeah, totally. During the event, as Skye talked about, student athletes are nervous. It's really important. Just stay focused and play your game. Try not to let outside distractions and outside pressures of, college coaches are on the sidelines get in your head. Another thing we like to add is explore the campus. If you're at a certain college, certain university, and you have time, make the most of your time. Get a tour, walk around the campus, get a feel. I always say to student athletes, it's really important to be walking around these campus because you may have a gut instinct of, wow, I can see myself here, or I don't like this, which is fine too, because then you know what you don't like about a campus.
Absolutely. Yeah, and parents, this is the key time for you all, to help. For those of you who have children that have a lot of anxiety around playing in front of coaches, I know that's a real thing. We need to get ahead of that so that during the event, your child has really clear strategies. So, there's lots of content that we have around that. But this is where we're uniquely positioned to support our children, to make sure that they're on their A game.
Yeah. And then after event, I forget who I was talking to. I think another one of our partners, but a really great way for your student athlete to stand out is sending a thank you note after an event. I feel like a lot of student athletes, a lot of families forget this. This could be a really great differentiator for you. Thanking a coach for their time, reassessing how interested they are in the school, asking for feedback, you know, sending this a day or 2 days after attending their prospect day or tournament really goes a long way. Cool. And I kind of jumped ahead here, but these are some of the things that you should be sharing in that pre-event email. The date, the time, who you're playing, where you're playing, so college coaches can easily find you. Now, with the Sports Recruits messaging system, if you have a pro account or you have an account through your club, you do have access to this. So it makes it really easy to reach out to college coaches. All you need to do is type in the name of the school and a drop down appears, and you can simply click on the college coach's name, embeds all the email addresses for you, saving you a ton of time. And then also, when you reach out, there's going to be a link embedded in every single message. When a college coach clicks that, they get taken directly to your Sports Recruits profile, and you get notified all in real time who's taking the time to learn more about you as a student athlete. And you can see that here. So it'll appear on your activity feed, and then you can also get a text message and an email whenever there's activity on your profile. Great. So we gave you guys a ton of information about how to navigate the event season as a parent and a guardian and as a student athlete. So definitely want to take some time to go through some questions here.
I responded to a couple of questions that came in.
Oh,
I
great.
responded to a parent that asked about, like, what if the club lost all of their game footage videos? Is it okay to send training video? And I said, sure, like, get game footage when you can, but training video is okay, especially if it's like small-sided games and it's more of a playing type environment. Let the coach
Yeah.
know, and make sure your child lets the coach know that the team has lost it.
Any video is better than none. So I
Yeah.
definitely get anything you can up there.
Yeah. This is a good question from Williams Watson here,
Mhm.
and kind of relates to your platform. So
Yeah. I
I'll
can
read
read
it
it.
out loud. Here, I'm moderating. I like this. As there's no assurance that the coach has read the email, what if we never get a reply? How many times is a max to email?
Yeah, so we get this question so much. There is no magic time, excuse me, on how frequently you should be reaching out. You should only reach out to college coaches when you have new information to share. It's not you send your introduction message and say, hey, want to make sure you got my message. Um, Depending on the college and the popularity, these college coaches could get hundreds of emails a week. So it's really important to stay patient and continue to update these college coaches whenever you have new information. I think, too, there's another layer as well, depending on which division you're reaching out to and how old you are. So for Division One, depending on your sport, they can't have recruiting like conversations until June 15th or September 1st. So Division Two and Division Three, there's little to no communication rules. They can talk to you at any point, but it's important to think about that as well. So I would say, like, if you've sent 15 emails and literally nothing, it may be time to throw up the white flag, but
Or to have your club coach reach out to the coach. Give them a
Yeah.
phone, have them make a phone call to that coach. They can advocate for your child if they're willing to do that, or one of your advocates
Yeah.
can do that. Might be just before you call, if it's like your child's top school at in-state school, like it's the perfect school, it feels like for you,
Mhm.
then I would just try to have a different point of contact. There's a lot of
Totally.
good questions here. too. So what about international play? I can actually answer this with a good experience. My son trained in Europe last year. We're considering again for his senior year. How will this impact recruiting and how to communicate with coaches like this? My daughter went and spent her senior spring in Spain. Actually, she had already committed to Emerson at that point, but it was definitely a factor that we positioned as a real positive that, she's really has this real love of the game. We've had these great international experiences. I would send video. You're maybe not going to be at that tournament or at that showcase in the middle of the season, but you can still layer in recruiting opportunities throughout the summer and other months. And make sure you're keeping them up to speed with what's going on in Europe, making sure those videos are coming in. And a lot of coaches are out in Europe recruiting, and that might be a really cool differentiator for a recruiting trip. So there might be a positive on that side.
Totally. I think we have time for about one or two more questions here. How do we find out about a school's prospect day or ID camps? I would just head to that school's program page. They usually have a drop down where you can see like upcoming events. If you can't see it, could be a good excuse to reach out to the college coach and seeing if they're having events this summer. And then recommendations for what a video should include, how long, what is the key for making the coach interested in the first few seconds. So there's a ton of different video you can put together. SportsRecruits actually recently launched pinned playlist, which from college coach feedback is how they like to view athletes, being able to look at them by certain skills. But you should only be including what we say are 4 or 5-star clips in your highlight reel or pinned playlist. So these are your best moments. And then it's also really important that you have a variety of different skills shown, right? You want to show that you're a versatile player. It shouldn't just be you scoring goals. It should be, assists, transition plays. You're doing a lot more than just one skill. So really important, you're showing a lot of different skills. And then also put your best clips in the beginning to really draw that college coach in. Sometimes athletes are like, I'm going to wait until the end to have my best clip and go out with a bang. We don't even know if a college coach is going to make it. So you want to draw them in to finish out the reel. So put the best clips in the beginning.
Absolutely.
Great. So again, guys, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to send a follow-up email to everyone with some information about soccer parenting. And then, everyone will get a recording of this webinar. Look out for that email sometime tomorrow afternoon. We appreciate you guys joining us, and we hope to see you on a webinar soon. Thanks so much, Skye, too. It's great to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks everyone for being here. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye, guys.